Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the module Culturally Responsive Teaching. This is Course F, Developing Culturally Responsive Curriculum. I am Dr. Suzanne Brooks, and I'll be your presenter today. I see we still have several colleagues joining us, so I will allow them to join. But I will move forward so that we can all be out in a timely manner. I am Suzanne Brooks, and I currently live in the Washington, D.C., Virginia area. I actually reside in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I am a director of student supports at a middle school and charter school here in the area. I have been here since college, so I guess this is my new home, but I am originally from Dayton, Ohio. So I am a Midwesterner at heart, I guess you could say. I don't have any pets, and that is for a specific reason. Now that I am an empty nester, I am really enjoying the ability to travel. And if you see the picture on the right, it is me vacationing in Santorini, Greece this past summer. I was also able to visit the Netherlands and Nigeria. So really enjoying this part of my life where yeah, I'm not being a soccer mom, although I really enjoyed that too. If you could, though, for me, so we could get to know some of you, I see that there are several of you on today. We have about 41 participants, so I'm not going to go. Usually I go through and introduce everyone and tell about the grades that they teach and the subject matter, but I'm just going to let you peruse through the chat and you could see yourself and maybe some friends in the chat. So go ahead and just drop in the chat your name, the grade that you teach or the grades that you teach, the subject or subjects that you teach, and share something that is making you happy today. The weather here is really mild, and I'm really enjoying that this nice fall day. If you're just joining us, go ahead and just drop in the chat your name, your grade level that you teach, subject matters that you teach, and then share something that is really making you happy today, something that you are grateful for. I'm also going to drop in the chat to everyone the note catcher that we're going to be using today to really help us get through the activities. If you could go ahead and just copy that and make yourself a copy of it, or you could just use good old pencil and paper. That'll work too. Someone says that their cat is making them happy today. Also, someone is enjoying the weather and being home today and not having to do that hectic commute. I can relate. We are actually in school in Maryland today, but we get off on Friday for Veterans Day, so I'll take that as well. All right. So thank you, everyone, for dropping that information in the chat. As I said, I have shared the note catcher that you'll need to make a copy of, and I'll be doing that periodically so that everyone can have access. So just some norms for today. Just be here now. We're here for a little less than an hour, so just be present and give your feedback as needed. Stick to the protocols and hear all voices. We're going to start and end on time. We're going to take an inquiry stance. We're going to ask questions. We're going to give feedback. We're going to take responsibility, however, for how our feedback might impact others. And as teachers, we always ground everything we do in research and evidence. So those are our norms for today. Welcome those of you who are just joining us. I am, once again, my name is Suzanne Brooks, and I'll be facilitating today. I'm dropping in the chat the note catcher that you will use when you start your activities. So this is a series on culturally responsive teaching, and we are now in Course F, Developing Culturally Responsive Curriculums. That's our topic for today, and hopefully you've been able to join in some of the other sessions, but if not, we'll be running them throughout the school year, and we hope that you will sign up for them. Our agenda today is how does student voice or our essential questions is how does student voice and choice impact student engagement? And why does culturally relevant curriculum impact student achievement? Our objectives is to gain knowledge of the CRSE framework and the alignment to current curriculum. Also to develop opportunities to incorporate student voice and choice in the curriculum, and also to enhance an existing lesson that you might use or unit components that you might already have developed. So like I said, we will be using a note catcher. I just want you to click on the link in the chat to make a copy of that note catcher, and that will help guide you. For those of you who are just joining, I will drop that in the chat again, and go ahead and make a copy for yourself. All righty. So activity number 1, the curriculum. Go ahead and open up your note catcher, and I want you to reflect or think about a course curriculum and what components are usually included in that course curriculum. So go ahead and just write your definition of curriculum and examples of curriculum that you use or have used, are currently using in the past. I'm currently using or have used in the past, excuse me. I'm going to drop that note catcher. If for some reason the link is not working for you, it's okay. We're going to go ahead and just, you can make a Google Doc or a Word doc, and or you can just use good old pencil and paper. That's fine as well. So going back, just think about what is included in a curriculum. And if some of you, we have a lot of you on here today, go ahead and just drop in the chat what curriculum is. Just a description of it or one word. When you think about curriculum, what do you include? I'll start off. I just added a few things like teacher course materials, teacher workbooks, content, examples, practice, creative curriculum. Love it, all of those. Videos, unit plans and units. Yeah, all of those. I'm actually in my office and I see some kiddos hitting each other. And of course, I want to go out there, but I'm going to stay focused here. A clear purpose, objective, content, assessments, reteaching, definitely. The curriculum is a guide for teaching content to students. It includes standards for students, a specific skill or set of skills for the content, definitely. Assessments, definitely. So all of those are included in curriculum. So when we think about background knowledge, very important for setting the stage for learning, right? And we think about culturally responsive teaching, it is a huge component in incorporating background knowledge and culturally responsive teaching. And I'm just going to play a little clip that gives us a more idea about it. It's about 1 minute.
In our classroom, we have a whole diverse group of students who come to us. I have the opportunity to really broaden their understanding so that when they step outside, they approach every situation, every person with an open mind, because the person that they see in front of the classroom, she's different.
Children, especially at this age, need positive role models. A lot of students come from single parent households, maybe they're figured at home, and they need to look up to, especially the boys. Was the airplane robot?
And to see a successful minority teacher who's reflective of them, I think is a powerful message.
Teachers wear so many other hats. We're life coaches, we're counselors. We are father figures. We're all these different things because these are what our students need.
It's not only about teaching students content and taking tests, it's about growth as a person.
So in thinking about culturally responsive curriculums, we also have to include ourselves. We are part of the curriculum. We act as teachers, we act as role models, we act as life coaches, we act as counselors for our students. And so we have to make sure that we are grounding ourselves also in the curriculum and representing ourselves so that our diverse student population can actually look at us as role models and look at us and understand that we represent them as well. So Zaretta Hammond, one of my favorite educators, says that culturally responsive teaching is the process of using familiar cultural information. So our curriculums need to represent that, right? It needs to be familiar and it needs to represent the culture of our students. So using this information and processes to scaffold learning, it emphasizes communal orientation. So we're looking at community here, and it is focused on relationships, cognitive scaffolding, and critical social awareness. So what else is culturally responsive teaching? Let's take a look.
Our student community is made up of all types of learners. Culturally responsive teaching is capitalizing on all that students bring into the classroom from their personal lives and their home lives, and respecting that and using that to create classrooms that are powerful and meaningful.
You need to know who your students are, their backgrounds, their interests, their families, and using that is going to be your number one tool in driving your instruction. That's how you make it relevant to them. That's how you make it exciting for them because they see themselves in the text. They see themselves in the examples.
My cultural heritage was largely absent from my school experience, and I don't want students to go through that. I want them to be able to explore the richness of their identity and the identity of their neighbors.
No, baby.
Calling Metro IND, the offices of Dr. Nicholas Rios and Dr. Pooja Mapatel.
It's very sad for two reasons.
In consultation.
She didn't like Natalie, and she didn't have a daddy of her own. She could have
The general inquiry.
Why don't you come up first?
I would like to dedicate this class to my grandpa. He's an immigrant and he knew very little English.
Any school should and can their students learn what they bring in the classroom. Use that to strengthen their teaching and their support of those students.
So being culturally responsive means that accepting that there's a richness in all students' identities and using that to really influence their learning. Culturally responsive teaching is connecting a student's heritage, which we heard in the video, and their culture to learning. So activity number 2, share out. I am going to place you in a breakout room. And in that breakout room, I want you to discuss for about 3 minutes how you have or would implement culturally responsive teaching in your school or classroom or community center, whatever you're representing here today. And then I want you to just come back and share some of your learnings in the chat. Okay, for about 3 minutes, discuss how you have implemented or would implement culturally responsive teaching in your school or classroom, and then be prepared to come and drop some of your ideas and wisdom in the chat. Here we go. Go ahead and join if you haven't yet. If you haven't joined, please go ahead and join. Okay, I see some of you are returning. And if you want, just go ahead, if you had the opportunity to share, or if you didn't, go ahead and just drop some of wisdom and nuggets of information in the chat about how you would implement culturally responsive teaching in your school or classroom, or how you have implemented it in the past. See, everyone is returning. Go ahead and drop in the chat any information that you were able to share or learn about culturally responsive teaching and how that can be implemented in your classrooms. And while you're doing that, we'll move forward. But go ahead and just drop some information in the chat about different ways that culturally responsive teaching can be done in your classroom. So, approaches to culturally responsive teaching. One thing that we have realized that culturally responsive teaching is recognizing and dismantling bias. Okay, so we're ridding ourselves of unconscious bias. We're ridding ourselves of different prejudices that we've held, things that we know about ourselves and things that we don't know about ourselves. When you are teaching students in a culturally responsive teaching environment, you target their background and culture to help you develop curriculum and instruction. You use real world issues for discussion and learning in the classroom, and you model high expectations for students' learning. You highlight the students' diversity. That means that everyone is coming to the table with different experiences and backgrounds that make them different, not as negative, but as a positive, and we can learn from these differences and this diversity. We use collaboration in culturally responsive classrooms. We use it with our students and family, as well as the local community. We collaborate to learn and to understand more about each other and how we can impact each other in the learning environment. We provide linguistically and culturally responsive communication. So that means if we have parents that have heritage languages, we make sure that we're communicating in all forms to them, be it email, newsletters, and other types of information that we're sending home with the students. And we reflect through a cultural lens, and we'll talk more about that. So we still have a few people joining us. Okay. So let's look in the chat and see what some of you have said. So you are talking about discussing students' backgrounds in culturally responsive environments. You're making sure that the lesson is open to everyone, so everyone can feel invested in the lesson. For example, using many different calendars. Awesome. You allow students to talk about their background. And if children have different beliefs and viewpoints of the world, providing an open lesson, it allows them to engage in the common knowledge with more proficiency and ownership, definitely. You recognize that everyone has different ways of celebrating or acknowledging their identity, and you find out what students are connected to, what engages them, what interests them. Awesome. And you acknowledge and respect other cultures when you teach one particular subject, and you ask, how do I say this word in Spanish? That's a great way of acknowledging. Learn about everyone's culture, and when applicable, you set up opportunities during the lesson for students' cultural identities to be incorporated. You also make sure to avoid any assumptions about what children should know regarding particular topics. You avoid stigmatic language or biased opinions, definitely, about particular groups of people. So those are all great. Thank you, everyone who shared. So when we're talking about traditional curriculum, I'm sure it's something that we all have experienced and we all have taught, but it's often in public education, and curriculum, as we know, refers to the expansive learning goals that are inclusive of the standards, units, lessons that we all teach during instruction and during student activities. Curriculum can incorporate projects, activities, and assignments. Curriculum resources may include texts, presentations, videos, hands-on learning materials, and manuals. And culturally responsive teaching curriculum and traditional curriculum elevates traditional curriculum by incorporating an inclusive model. So what we're saying is that we have a traditional curriculum and it's worked pretty well, but we can also use a culturally responsive lens or a culturally responsive curriculum to integrate and this really brings about more inclusion in our classrooms. So with a culturally responsive curriculum, we are able to support it by promoting culturally diverse student intersectionality. As someone already said, we have a plethora of diversity in our classroom, and by taking each of those and intersecting them, we grow and we learn in a classroom setting. We develop a community. Culturally responsive curriculum influences student interaction within their communities as well as global environments. Culturally responsive curriculum centers student experiences and incorporates different cultures and values in the learning environment. So what we're looking at is that when we say center students' experience, the knowledge that they're bringing to the classroom should be reflected in the curriculum. So our third activity, I want you to go ahead and open your note catcher, and I will once again drop that in the chat for those of you who did not have a chance to capture it. So I just dropped that in the chat again for those of you who weren't able to make a copy. So what I want you to do is to reflect on a text that you've read, an activity that you've participated in, or a project that you completed while in elementary, middle, or high school. Do you feel that it was culturally responsive in terms of the approach to learning? Was it a culturally responsive text, activity, or project? Write your thoughts in the note catcher and please share in the chat. I'll give you about 2 minutes to reflect on that. Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the chat and I can start reading those off as you're finishing up. Take about 30 more seconds. So Bradley says that in 7th grade at JHS 240, we were assigned to research a French-speaking country. I feel it was culturally responsive as we were allowed to choose which country we wanted to research and the aspects of the country we wanted to highlight. So that's definitely ways of using culturally responsive teaching in a global manner. Camellia says that Anansi stories were essential in my reading journey. The characters were real life, relatable characters, and the stories were funny and relatable, which obviously provide you with a great deal of engagement. Anyone else like to share? Just go ahead and drop it in the chat and I will get back to it. So when we're looking at culturally responsive curriculum, we know that it historically increases, elevates marginalized voices. It includes opportunities to learn about how power and privilege intersects in different communities. It empowers learners to be agents of positive social change. So that's the social justice component. And it provides the opportunity to learn about perspectives that are different from our own experiences or our own narrative. We're able to really hear about others' perspectives and their life experiences. It works towards dismantling systems of bias and inequity, and it resists dominant ideologies in education, which have, a lot of times been at the forefront of our educational systems. So let's see what we have in the chat. We have Caesar saying that in high school, we started international shows that focused on so many cultures, performing plays and cultural dances. Wow, that's amazing. From each of the countries that were represented. Tamara says that she attended a class last summer where she had to find out how many countries spoke French, and she really think it was based on culture, definitely. Hannah says that book creating activity asked ENL students to create a picture book with a description of their life before they came to America. That's so interesting. And the books could have writings and pictures. And I think this is definitely cultural responsive because of students' linguistic abilities. So George says that it's difficult to answer this question because the issue of culturally responsive with respect to learning did not become a reality until he came to the US. Cultures in his native land were left outside the school door where we embraced more Western culture. Very interesting. Well, thank you everyone for that. So when we talk about culturally responsive curriculums, culturally responsive teaching, we use an asset-based approach, right? So when we say asset, what are the positive things that we're bringing from our different identities and culture to the setting? It is the foundation for approaching culturally responsive teaching and adopting a culturally responsive curriculum. Asset-based approaches really focuses on our strengths, on our students' strengths, and it looks upon diverse views, culture, and characteristics as being positive assets. Steps to an asset-based approach curriculum in instruction might mean implementing a baseline diagnostic learning activity where you find out where everyone is and what they're bringing, what positive things they're bringing, and what they can teach others. It provides different opportunities for students to select learning activities. So we're talking about student choice and student voice. And it provides feedback to students and identifies areas of strength and uses them to support the areas of need. So when we talk about implementing a baseline diagnostic, we are looking for the areas of strength in our students, and we use that as the foundation to build and to encourage and to support growth in our students. So, in reflecting about developing culturally responsive curriculum, we have to look at how the curriculum is designed and how it needs to be intentional and in terms of the efforts to engage diverse and or unrepresented populations. So we really know that about different texts that we put in front of our students. How is it representative of all students in the classroom and their diversity and their heritage? And that is also providing student choice. You don't have to provide just one text because you might find that students have a various interests, right? That interest might be reflective of their own culture or heritage, or it might be reflective of a culture or heritage that they're interested in learning about. So how does my curriculum acknowledge various perspectives and or voids within the field? So you can out and say like this story took place in France, or this story took place in Mexico. You need to acknowledge that there are different cultures and that we can sometimes see things that we are experiencing in our own culture through the culture of others. So also you want to take into consideration how you choose the course materials. If you find that there are some gaps in terms of representing different identities in the curriculum that you've been given or you've chosen, you can supplement it with other things that will help represent the different identities. Also, how does your syllabus reflect a desire to have an inclusive classroom community? This is really sometimes the first thing that students learn about what they will be learning in your classroom, and it needs to reflect the diversity of your students. How do your course materials reflect the diversity? And once again, I just reiterated that a lot of times when there are gaps about a diversity gaps in your curriculum, you can supplement that with other course materials, videos, texts, presenters, and it really allows for a rich, culturally responsive learning environment. So in identifying inclusive curriculum, you should feature and highlight resources that are written and developed by traditionally marginalized voices that offer different perspectives. There's not a one, like it could be someone from Ghana. We know that there are different perspectives of the people of Ghana, and we can represent those in whatever type of curriculum that we are presenting to our students. We know that race, culture, language, gender, sexual identity, ability, religion, nationality, migrant, refugee status, socioeconomic status, housing status, and other identities should be included in curriculum resources. Will all of these be able to fit into one lesson? No, but we can take advantage of the various characteristics here and represent them throughout maybe a unit plan or some type of other way to plan activities around these type of things. Also, identifying inclusive curriculums plays a role in helping schools to understand and align curriculum to the variety of histories, languages, and history that reflects cultural diversity. So you compare traditional, content and curriculums with other digitals and media platforms that really provide current and relevant context so that real life experiences can be seen through these things. And this also helps to engage our students. You can use data points and assessments to measure and other measurements that reflect learning spaces, modalities, and demonstration of proficiency. You can connect instructional content with the daily lives of our students by using culturally specific examples. And you can incorporate cooperative learning activities where students are really working together as community in groups and small groups or pairs to encourage understanding of diverse perspectives. And at this point, you're really getting the student voice in your classroom. So, student voice and choice. There's not a one size fits all approach, right? Contextualized to teacher and student lives and experiences. Everyone has a different experience. So, offer more choice in the content, and students can select a sub-content within that standard. Choose topics related to skill, and this can apply to skill-based instructional goals and standards and other content. So for activity number 4, we have a student voice and choice activity. And the Padlet was not working earlier. So what I want you to do is just drop it in the chat and just describe how you provide in your classroom, in your community setting, in your school. How do you provide voice and choice? How do you provide students with the ability to use their voice, to tell about their identities, and how do you allow them to choose different texts or activities that they do? Go ahead and drop it in the chat. I'll give you about 30 seconds on that one. Go ahead and share out with your colleagues just how you provide your students with activities that give them voice and choice in the classroom, or how, if you haven't done it, how you're thinking about doing it. I'm gonna go ahead and move forward as you're thinking through that. So with guidance and prompting, teachers should support flexible groupings where students choose who they work with. Who do you need to help? Who can help you? What are my strengths and what are my areas of growth? So those are the questions that you give to the students to help them formulate where they want to work or who they want to work with. I know a lot of times just kind of like things that we're used to and the knowledge that we have of students really supports us creating those groups. But what we're saying here is give the students voice and choice in the classroom about who they would like to partner or pair with, what groups they would like to work with. Maybe you have given the option of different choice in a text. Maybe you've offered students 4 or 5 books to choose from or 4 or 5 texts to choose from. And the students will be able to join a group based on the text that they have chosen to read. So these type of things really help support students making intentional choices and becoming an independent learner. So, student voice and choice. Instead of explaining the connections between the learning materials and expected outcomes, ask them why they want to learn the material. Ask them what interests them, what engages them with this material that they're choosing. Students really can become the driving force and the purpose of their learning. They become independent thinkers and independent learners this way. Also allow students to decide what they want to learn and where they want to learn. They can use different learning spaces, including desks, it could be the teacher's desk even, the floor, the hallway, field trips, library. Those are just several spaces that you can use and give students the choice to where they want to learn. We have some things in the chat that I'll read out. Offer students a choice in how they want to complete an activity. Students can create a puzzle piece about their culture. That's really interesting. They can, on Fridays, we allow them to choose their own books to take home, allow students to voice their opinions and respect those of others. While in advisory, I have different groupings of students and allow them to decide who they work with within the guidelines. Awesome. Through activities or centers, as in theater, act like a nurse, a police officer, a cook, by providing culturally diverse texts. Renata says that in pre-K, we have show and tell on Fridays. Love it. Using different texts and and students are able to visit the library to select books that interest them. So that's definitely, all of those are great examples of giving students voice and choice in classrooms. So when looking at the settings as well and giving student voice and choice, we can use quiet corners, we can use sensory areas. Kids can stand or sit at the desk if they want. They can have conference style areas or classroom couches, and using flexible spaces can really help students to meet where they are social, emotionally, right? Some days they might want to just go to the comfy couch and just relax. Other days they might be a little fidgety and they want to stand up. So just really allowing them to choose the flexible spaces that they want to learn in. Also, we have to adapt as the adults, as the teachers, to the students' needs and be flexible when students are creating work, when they're learning different concepts, and when they are presenting work. We really can use universal design for learning in that aspect to say, okay, there's not only one way that you can represent what you know. A student might perform something that they've learned. Another student might create a video, another student might create a poster. So we're really adapting to their needs and to what really is a strength for them. Also, we have to change our traditional mindsets about teaching, because it's not really about a hierarchy anymore. It's about providing a balance where students can learn and also students can teach. So here we're going to see a brief video about student voice and choice.
If you guys want to work independently, what is going to be the best place?
We realize if we were trying to have kids communicate, engage in collaborative work, focus on critical thinking, the dominant teaching model where everybody's sitting in a desk facing the wall, teacher up front, was not going to work.
Flexible space gives them the opportunity to learn in different ways. You may see students in a circle and having a dialogue, or you might see a teacher floating around and giving one-on-one support to kids.
When a teacher doesn't have to be in the front of the room, they can make choices with their curriculum. Students don't all have to be learning the exact same thing at the same time.
If you're going to work independently to catch up, you'll actually turn the tables toward that wall. Those who want the mini lesson are going to come to this table.
Everybody ready? You can write that down. Compare and contrast.
Yes.
So when we give our kids choices in that environment, that provides them with the opportunity to make decisions, about the things that they really need to be successful in school.
You're just using the facts.
Yeah.
Love it.
So awesome. So we're looking at student voice and choice, and we're giving students flexibility in classrooms. It's really looking at does this student want to work independently, or do these students want to work collaboratively? And they all can happen in the same space, right? Using flexible spaces allows students to learn differently. We all know that there are different approaches to learning, and students in a moment might feel that they can learn better working alone or maybe working with a group of students. I loved in the clip how the teacher gave the option of choice by saying, those of you who want to work independently, you're going to be turning the desk to the wall. And those of you who need to, who want to have the mini lesson, you're going to come to this table. So really they are taking charge of their learning. They're able to really use their cognition to say, okay, I think I got this. I think I can work independently and practice. Or they could say, you know what? Didn't really get all of that information. I think I might need to join the mini lesson just to make sure that I got it. Let's see what some of you said in the chat. Students get to choose what centers and areas to play in a preschool setting. Elsia said, where is this school? How can we do that in New York City Department of Education? I believe the school is in New York. I will send that over to you guys. Ms. Casanova says, I work with the ASD population at my school. We focus a lot on how to conduct social interactions. I utilize culturally diverse texts related to subject and topic, and I allow students to do a call and response during our discussions so we can practice respecting others' opinions. And that takes practice, right? We have to learn how to not only understand others and their different identities, but also how to communicate that as well. So that's awesome. Offer students a choice in how they complete an activity. Wonderful. These are all great. Thank you guys for sharing. So curriculum review. When you're looking at the curriculum, if you have that autonomy about what curriculum you might want to select for the next year or what curriculum you really want to infuse in your classroom, you have to do a lot of self-reflection. You have to analyze the curriculum and the resources to make sure that there are opportunities to create a culturally responsive learning environment. You have to be able to increase awareness of culturally diverse students, particularly as it relates to current students. So are your students reflected in the text? Are your students reflected in the curriculum that you choose? And if it's not, then you can supplement. So build awareness and knowledge of racial and cultural issues so that you can be transparent with your students as you are introducing things that are happening in real world situations. Also create a supportive professional environment that views culturally responsive teaching as a continuum of growth and an ongoing conversation. So that might mean you developing different groups. It might mean you taking on a mentor or joining a podcast, things that really talk about culturally responsive teaching and materials and curriculums. You have to be very intentional about moving toward that and gaining more knowledge. Also review current curriculum materials and content to determine areas of alignment and gaps in culturally responsive pedagogy. So culturally, when you're reviewing your curriculum, you're definitely going to still use research-based frameworks and tools and rubrics. You're going to use tools that are effective in reviewing a curriculum, and also elements that allow you to audit a curriculum. Okay, so when you're looking at a curriculum and you're saying, is this a culturally responsive curriculum? There are different elements and tools that you can use to go in and audit those things. So one of these is a curriculum scorecard. And what you do is you have the curriculum in front of you and you select an evaluation team. So it could be content or grade level colleagues that you work with. And you want to use different people with different characteristics and race, gender, age, sexuality, class, things of that nature. And you choose the grades and units and lessons that you're going to analyze. And you don't have to focus specifically on something that you already know is diverse. Use something that you've used in the past. So use the curriculum and the scorecard to chart keywords and ideas and qualities and statements that you look at and you see that are in the curriculum that are related to representation, social justice, or teachers' materials. And make sure that everyone is on the same page, that you're all understanding the material. And then you're going to provide your level of satisfaction with the curriculum related to various measures. And you're going to use these scoring guidelines to help you decide what your ratings are. So after that, you're going to tally your score. You're going to do a tally based on the characters in the text or the materials. You're going to do a tally based on the author who wrote this, based on representation. Are you seeing diverse representation based on social justice issues, and also based on teachers' materials? And you're going to discuss this process with your team, and then you're going to share the results. And from that, you will help to select a curriculum that you feel is culturally responsive. And also, if you have a curriculum that you don't feel is culturally responsive, you can go out and you can supplement it with other materials. So curriculum components, like I said, the representation, it determines the extent to which students are reflected in the curriculum and being exposed to different authors, different characters, identities, and cultures. You're going to look at social justice in terms of the components that relate to understanding opportunities that the curriculum can use to provide more responsiveness in terms of culture. How can you decolonize power and privilege? How can you develop curriculums that have multiple perspectives or opinions? And how can you connect learning to real life and action, which is going to be just the highest form of engagement for our kiddos. So when you look at curriculum components that involve teachers' materials, you're going to review all the teachers' materials for the curriculum that you selected. And you're going to be able to review at least one section in the teacher's manual for the overall curriculum. Do you have diverse student identities that are seen? Okay, because those are definitely going to be a positive. It's going to be an asset. And does the teacher guidance for units and lessons on how to personalize lessons? So within those teachers' materials, are they giving you guidance on how to work with students from diverse backgrounds, students with special needs, students that are English language learners, students that have other social emotional challenges? So is that there for you in that curriculum? So this is how really you're going to be scoring all of these components. So activity number 5, and this is going to be our wrap up. I want you to think about the key elements of a culturally responsive curriculum. What key elements do you find needs to be in a culturally responsive curriculum based on what you knew, your background knowledge about culturally responsive curriculums, and maybe something that you've learned today? So go ahead and just drop that in the chat. What are the key elements of a culturally responsive curriculum? Okay, this is today, so you're off. Also, I want to let you know that as you're earning the CTLE credits, you can take these courses synchronously or asynchronously. So go ahead and just scan that QR code if you haven't already, letting you know that for today, you will receive your CTLE credit within 24 hours, and it will be emailed to either your work email address or your personal email address. I think they're emailing them to both just to make sure that you get them, and you should receive that within 24 hours of completing this course. So go ahead and I'll give you a couple seconds to scan it, and I'm going to read out in the chat. Crystal says that she has 3 beanbag chairs for her 6th to 8th grade students, and I'm sure that allows them the ability just to work independently and just relax when they might become overstimulated or just need more sensory input. Students in Mary's class get to choose what centers and areas to play with in their preschool setting. And Let's see. And when we talk about culturally responsive curriculums, Elizabeth says it builds interest and influences everyone around us to learn about everyone's culture and how they can identify. Wonderful. Student voice and student choice and a reflection of self should be seen in the curriculum. Definitely. Okay, thank you. So also, if you did not know, you can earn a $50 Amazon gift card for your classroom by referring 6 staff members from the New York City Department of Education. And you can do that. They can take the classes synchronously or asynchronously, and you automatically receive the $50 gift card using your unique referral code. So another way that culturally responsive curriculums are important to make students feel connected with the curriculum and learning environment. And Harriet says that she cannot scan, but you will be able to get this information when they send you your certificate. So that will be there for you. So just look out for your certificate, Harriet. I am now going to drop in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to drop in the chat the survey. And I want your feedback. It's 3 short questions, so no worries about timeliness, but you will need to complete this survey in order to get your certificate. So let me do that for you. Okay, here you go, everybody. I am dropping the survey in the chat. So go ahead and copy that link or open that up in your browser and fill out, I think it's about 3 questions, including your email address. So please, in order to get credit for today, you have to complete the survey. If you did not get the link for this, but you've been participating, go ahead and have your colleague send you this link, maybe email it to you or chat it to you, and then just go ahead and complete the survey to get credit.